it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on that thought.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and it is Geordies here. Geordies there with me, Mitch, George, Steve Hasty and Steve Wilkinson tonight. Slightly earlier time, apologies for that. I've got somewhere to be and somewhere to go later on, so apologies if this is screwed up your viewing figures, your viewing tonight, but at least we're here and we've got plenty to talk about as always. Stu Penman and Saudi Gaza, of course, unfortunately can't make it because of the earlier start. But here we are. And George, I'm going to move you over there a little bit. Don't forget, you can ask George a question. So half past 4, I'll get to that. So if you've got a question, particularly for George, then ping it in now. Let's start with a bit of politics first, George. And I want to get your views on this whole build up to the Chelsea-Newcastle game, which of course saw Newcastle's good run come to an end, although it has to be said through rather controversial circumstances. But all the pre-match and after-match talk has been about the comparison between the regime in Saudi and, of course, the onslaught that we're seeing in Ukraine at the hands of the Russians at the moment, and the comparisons between the two. And it almost feels as if, we're getting a few sly digs again by various people in the press, George. And I just want to know what your thoughts were on that.
Well, makes me furious in some ways, but in other ways, I have to say, I think we should have been prepared for it coming. But it also shows to me how poor our press is at the moment. I mean, some of the stuff these people are writing to call themselves serious journalists, absolute rubbish. And they've got very, very short memories. So they're having a go at us because we're tied to Saudi Arabia. And then having a go at Abramovich now, but where have they been for the last 10 years? How many of the previous Chelsea managers, and you can reel off the names, how many of them were asked about Abramovich when they took over the job? And Eddie Howe's, the launch in Eddie Howe about Saudi. So there's a bit of me quite, a lot of me quite angry and disappointed at what's happening. But I'm just as angry at the way it's played out, though, that the people who haven't got much between their ears, who are calling themselves journalists now. I mean, there's so many things you could pick on to have a go at, which are, in my mind, every bit as bad as what is happened in Saudi Arabia. For example, why haven't people been asking Boris about the Conservative Friends of Russia, which his wife and Dominic Cummings started in 10 Downing Street? Because that's where they got the money to beat Jeremy Corbyn 4 years ago. It was Russian money that. So why aren't people asking questions about that if it's so bad? And of course they're not. They're very picky. And sadly, the Saudi connection is an easy one, but unfortunately they're lazy. They don't even do the research about what it's about. In fact. Yes, the Saudis are involved, but so are a lot of other people in that part of the world. And they're involved because another country asked them to help to get them rid of the Houthis or whatever they call them. So it isn't a one-way street. Human rights, yes. I mean, I abhor the notion that the state kills people for whatever reason and would never see the death penalty back in here. But it's a country that has a long history and a long tradition, and that'll take some getting used to. One of the positives for me in our involvement is we can show how we appreciate Saudi involvement. We can show how much value we're going to get out of Saudi involvement, not just as a club, but as a city, as a region, and so on. So. As I say, they're very picky. And I noticed some of the Tory papers, I mean, Teesside's been picked up with about 100 million, 500 million to development plan. And where's that money come from? The King of Saudi Arabia. Why aren't they asking about that money? Is that money all right? But no, they won't, because there's a Tory mayor in Teesside who's able to say, haven't I done a good job? So, it's a mix. But the worst of it for me is that they pick and choose and they pick easy targets. Eddie Howe didn't sign up to become a political correspondent or a political expert when he became manager of Newcastle United. Although even in football, there is some local politics he should know about. But in terms of the big one, I thought he held himself very well, very steady, and didn't give in to the bullying tactics of the press. I've seen him today, and he's extended things a little bit further, but still very dignified, very assured, and that's what I want from a manager for Newcastle United. As to the other things, well, we just have to face it, I think, and they will pick and choose. They'll pick and choose what
good
when
stuff, George.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Neil, I mean, should Eddie Howe have to, do this really? I mean, we've been through it at the start when he came, it was more or less the first question he was asked, in a press conference with Newcastle. And you would expect that. But again, it's your dad said he did handle it very professionally. But should he have to answer questions about this?
I find it very fascinating how the press pick and choose their arguments and pick and choose certain examples to suit their own agenda. They bombarded Tuchel in his conference to the point where he had his head in his hands at one point. And then held him up as being somebody who was able to deal with it well. But what they didn't explain is he's talking about an outgoing owner, not about the owner he's then got to work with for the forthcoming weeks and months in the year. It's not the same. The pick and choose apples and pears arguments. Pick and choose apples and pears arguments about the conflict in the Ukraine and the conflict in Yemen. They're not comparable conflicts. It doesn't mean two wrongs make a right, and it doesn't mean that the things that are happening in Yemen are great. They're not. But you can't simplify it by making simplified comparisons. It's far more complex than that. What they're wanting to see, in my opinion, is what I would call a generational change in 5 minutes in Saudi Arabia. And that's just not going to happen, guys. It's just not going to happen. I've even seen people stand up saying, you can't say that Saudi is changing and use that as an excuse. No, it's not an excuse, but Saudi is changing. It's changing in the 10 years I've been in the Middle East. Dubai's changed even more. And the trajectory that it's on is going to take it in a similar direction. But there's still state executions here in the UAE. So why isn't Pep Guardiola being asked about that on a regular basis? There's still state executions in Thailand. So why isn't Leicester's manager being asked about that on a regular basis? There's still state executions in China. And what about the Uyghur people in China being held in camps? Why isn't Wolves manager being asked about that on a regular basis? You can turn, because of the impact that football has, because of the global impact that the Premier League has, because of the impact that it has on culture, society, and young people, it's really important that all football managers and all football clubs are aware of these kind of things and are aware that these are questions that could come up. I think Eddie Howe's done a fantastic job between the weekend and today, even. I think he handled himself much more impeccably today than he did at the weekend. And that means somebody somewhere in the club's got hold of him, sat down with him and said, right, Eddie, we need to address this and how you're going to tackle this from here on in. But I still stand by the argument, refusing to engage with the questions which are politically weighted and which have massive agenda. And some of those are from journalists from the Northeast who are going at our manager with a political, personal agenda. Refusing to engage doesn't mean you're ignoring the problems. And that's a difference. I would be picking and choosing my battles very carefully, because I know fine well that he knows if he says something wrong or says one thing wrong. We've already seen what happened to Amanda Staveley's comments at that Times Football Forum. Again, with loaded questions from certain individuals. Taras Panya was desperate to get somebody with a gotcha moment. Desperate for it. And so I would be handling questions from him like a hot potato, unfortunately. And I think so far he's done really, really well. And like I say, I think he's done even better today than he did at the weekend. And they can't hold Tuchel up as an example of how you should behave because, again, his circumstances are entirely different to Eddie Howe's. Complex is an understatement. Why Steve and I sat on Amigos 2.5, 3 years ago using words like geopolitics and people going, now you see where we're at. The journey is unfolding just like we've said it would. It's been accelerated, I think, by stuff in Russia. I think the game's been changed a little bit by actions in Ukraine. But what we're seeing is basically a distillation of all those things that were chucked into the mix 2.5 years ago about the kind of things that would be thrown at one on a regular basis and keep being thrown at. It's never going to go away. I think as a fan base, we have to be very acute how we behave. I love the exaggeration some journalists have used at the weekend, saying there were many Saudi flags in the Newcastle end. I've heard Liam say on the show the other day he counted 2. And okay, he said he could see 2/3 of the away end. So okay, let's be generous. Let's round up. Maybe there was 3. But there's one permanent Saudi flag, a permanent fixture on a board in the Chelsea end from the Chelsea Supporters Club of Saudi. Again, how many wrongs make a right here? Who's allowed to do what? And I'm also acutely aware, though, there's a generation of our fans who are currently, people seem to want to deny them the joy of following the football club after 14 years of Mike Ashley. And I think they're allowed to enjoy that. And I think we're allowed to enjoy that just for the football and just for the awakening that we've had as a club and take the politics out of it. But unfortunately now, it's all become intertwined. In reality, you cannot really take the politics out of it. For a whole host of our fan base, actually, I wish we could. And it's what saddens me the most is that there's definitely people playing this now with personal political agenda, and it stinks. And Eddie Howe shouldn't be the brunt of that.
Steve, the show that I did with Liam Kennedy is one of our most viewed on the channel, as you know, each week. And yesterday was fascinating. I mean, I sat back myself and listened intently to what he was saying about those press conferences, Steve. And fair play to Liam. He always plays it with a straight bat, and certainly doesn't throw anybody under the bus in what he said. But it was intriguing just to listen to the stories that he had to tell about those kind of press conferences. And wonderful insight. I've retweeted it on Twitter for those of you who want to catch up. But yeah, Steve, that was fascinating, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Liam was right. He's there. We have to take Liam at face value and what he's saying, because he's in the room. Whether it's a video room or whether he's actually physically in a proper room, he's experiencing it, he's listening to it, and he's able to report on it. He's getting a flavour of what certain elements of the press room are coming from in terms of their agendas, if you like. And it's not just the agendas of politics. It's not just the agendas of their own political persuasion, but it's also their personal agendas that some of them have against Newcastle United or against certain individuals at Newcastle United, certain individuals within the ownership, their feelings towards those individuals for one reason or another, whether it's because they've been snubbed in the past or whether they just haven't had the interviews that other people have had. And we all know how sort of schoolgirlish and childish press rooms can be when some people are getting what they want and other people are not getting, and the jealousy expands and the fingers start to get pointed and the accusations get made of your favourite and this type of thing. But in terms of what's being said, I'm interested in it's fascinating the way that Mitch put it over there. I think there's elements of xenophobia. I think there's elements of Islamophobia. I think there's elements of certain religious intolerances that have been brewing. I think there's obviously the political aspect of what's happening in Russia. Then there's the business of religious partition that you have in terms of different sects within a religion, and this state v state argument. All of those are far too big for little old you and me and the rest of the Newcastle fan base who go to St James's Park and fill St James's Park 52,000 week in, week out, who just want to talk about football and watch football and enjoy football. It's far too big a topic for us to suddenly get embroiled in on a Wednesday evening or on a Saturday in the pub or on a Sunday morning before we end up going to another changed fixture, one of which is going to be Easter Sunday, by the way. You know, Christ almighty, they do everything they can to knock fans, don't they? But I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by the personalities involved because, as Mitch says, we've looked at some of these journalists, we've followed some of their antics, we've followed some of their words over a long period of time, and we've studied the situation that's been happening, whether it's been to do with Chelsea, whether it's been to do with Everton. We've looked at the situations at Derby financially. We've studied that aspect of the game, and all of that seems to have been washed over because now all of a sudden they've got another stick in their hand that they want to hit us with, and it's quite frankly, like as I say, beyond the realms of what we can influence in any way, shape, or form. What we can do is we can listen, we can take on board what people are saying, and I think that's what Eddie Howe's done. I think his press conference today was certainly better than the one on Sunday. But it's disappointing that when the questions get asked, they're not happy with his answer, so they go. And they've got to understand that he's the football man first. People are saying, oh, now he's the face of Newcastle and he's got to do it. No, the face of Newcastle is Amanda Staveley and Meardad and Jamie Rubin and the PIF. They are the people who, at the end of the day, have the responsibility to run the football club. He runs the football side, they run the business, and they own the club. And if they've got problems, then go to them and speak to them and stop hounding Eddie. Eddie's done his little bit. Just move on, guys. Move on.
Okay, Steve, from your perspective, I'm sure you've watched this with interest as well, how Newcastle United has been, attacked and unfairly attacked, I think. And it seems as if it's just something we're going to have to put up with, Steve, isn't it? This geopolitical argument that continues circles. And I think Mitch put it across really well. It's a conversation I've had over the last 48 hours is that, we do business with so many countries that have various ways of dealing with criminals or with people that have gone against the rules of the country. Yet, we don't have an argument about that. And when other managers come in, they haven't had to go through this kind of victimization, which Newcastle United are certainly going through, sometimes at the hands of our own journalists.
Yeah, I think there's certainly an agenda from the certain members of the media to try and look for the soundbite that they can make a headline out of, as Mitch was saying about the Amanda Staveley. They were looking for a headline to twist the words, and I think Eddie Howe's done great on the last two press conferences. Possibly better today because he was probably more prepared for Saturday because of the fact that we're playing Chelsea, that there was going to be questions coming up. And I think the point that Liam made last night was that there was mutterings, the answers, the straight back answers he was given. The media weren't happy, and there was sort of mutterings that they were picking up on the phones on the chairs next to them that they weren't happy in the answers, and that they probably thought, well, let's just back off and let's try and catch them off guard today when we're preparing for a game against Everton. They'll not be expecting it. And today I thought he was even better, that he just took a straight bat again and said, right, I'm just going to fob these off. I'm the football man. Talk to me about football. If you want to get the information about Newcastle, you know the people to be talking to. Try and get an appointment with Amanda. Try and speak to the Saudis directly. Get a statement from them. They're the ones that or have the bigger picture to look at. I've got a football team, and I think in the same way that he's professionally prepared the team to give us the performances we've had in recent times, and be organised and planned for that. I think he's done the same thing in the press conferences, and hopefully that now will continue. That he'll just fob the questions off and they'll back off. I'm sure they won't though, because I think they're always going to look and try and catch him out and hope they can get that soundbite that makes a headline by twisting a few words around. So, But we cannot, as Steve says, we cannot get involved in everything. Yes, we might have opinions about Saudi, Russians, and the rest of them. Where there's various pots of money come from. There's bound to be corruption in lots of clubs at the owners and directors and things of that. We want to concentrate on the football, and that's the way it should be.
Okay, Al-Walid, is it pleasing for you as somebody who lives in Saudi to see how Newcastle fans are responding on social media, and how certain journalists are defending Saudi as a country, because it's something which you have to live with out there. You have to live with this, but it must be pleasing for you to see so many Newcastle fans clearly having an understanding now, but also coming out and defending your country.
Exactly, and we really appreciate this defending. But I think, it's easy to fall in a trap on media. Anybody giving just any opinion, like for example Gary Neville, this is not his field at first place. And for the teams, there is owner and director test. So I didn't understand. For example, Abramovich, he passed this. So I don't know. We didn't know actually until now why it's been taken, the club from Abramovich. We didn't understand this situation. We all the years before, they said politics should not affect. It's prohibited to affect the sport. I remember there is a country near us, Michno, Kuwait. They've been abandoned for mixing politics with the sport for many years. And look now they're putting the sport into the politics interfere with the sport. This is totally separate. It should be a separate thing, because every country have in the United Nations, they have rules, each other protocols and rules. So what happened in other country, it's been known by the same country. It shouldn't be any. I can't give, for example, for me, I can't give opinion about United Kingdom rules because I don't live there. I wasn't born there. I don't know what happened there. So it's not right to say stupid or unreasonable things to UK or another country, for example. So we feel the same. We got opinion. They don't understand what it's really about. For the 81, this is something not. It happens. They are rapists. They are murderers. This is Saudi law, and this should be respected. So it's at the beginning when I speak, I said we fall on a trap. So we should all do like what Eddie Howe did in the conference room. We just any question that we are just talking about football, and I'm really sad to see some dividing sometimes some opinions negative to this matter, because it's football. It's nothing related to politics at all.
Yeah, Al-Walid. Yeah, great point. And great to hear everyone's views on that. I'm sorry that we've taken out 25 minutes of the show with politics. But unfortunately, that's where we're at. Go on, George.
Sorry, I just want to come back on the money in football. And I saw a piece the other night about saying, well, Liverpool fans are happy with their American owners, and Manchester United's doing this and others are doing that and the other. Well, if it was a journalist that had any sense in Liverpool and did some digging about their owners, one of the owners has a connection with the Teamsters in the United States. Now, the two of the Teamsters run by the bloody mafia. The mafia, for goodness sake.
Should I say allegedly there, George? Should I say
allegedly? If you like. The link's easy to find. I could find
in George's opinion.
In George's opinion. If there's a hitman turns up outside your door, sell Marjorie. Deal with it.
Absolutely.
Buried in Liverpool.
No, but seriously, that's if you really want to get deep and talk about that seriously, then do the investigation, because it's all there hidden underneath. Same with Manchester United's American owners as well.
Yeah, great point, George. Really good point. Okay, we will move on from politics and look back at the weekend's game in a moment. I will give a shout out to the sponsors because obviously we usually do that around about the half-hour mark, but I think we'll have a lot to say on football. So big shout out to Spider VPN for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN, they come up at the top of the Google search list. Thanks for your support, lads. And at skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors 0191389 97245 and a Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks to Chris and the lads at Arcot Interiors, found at the bottom of Heaton Road. For all your kitchen necessities, Google Arcot Interiors. They come up at the top of the Google search list as well. Thanks also to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. And thanks to Cleekai, meet the new Game Over screen. Drop into a Clearun device near you. Available on Apple Store, Google Play, and at clearun.game. Thanks to Jab Signature. You can find them at jabsignature.co.uk and that Media Arts as well. Thank you for all your video content. Media Arts. You can find them at the Google search list as well. If you want to subscribe to the channel, then hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner. You can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to your social media. Drop into the comments box to leave a question or to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and the rest usually goes up 24 hours after the show is finished. Put your phone over the QR code and you can join the NUFC Matters family. £25 one-off fee gets you a scarf, a pen and a cup and a membership card and entry into the monthly draw. And if you subscribe to the channel, John from QTech is knocked up these rather nifty looking NUFC Matters car stickers. So if you're already a subscriber or you're a new one, simply subscribe and then get onto the website, nufcmatters.com. You can claim your car window sticker. And that's a great way to show your support for the show. That is free. We are also supporters of the food bank on here. So get yourself onto nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk to make a donation to the virtual bucket. Very important to do that because obviously we haven't had a home game for a while. And we've got a couple more weeks before we do have one. So make sure you make a donation. We've also got this event coming up on Saturday, the 9th of April at 12 o'clock, 12 noon. Tickets are £10 from newcastlelegends.com. Come along and see NUFC Matters live with me, Super Mac Gibbo, and Holly. And a couple of other things. We've also got a raffle going on with the Dan Burns signed shirt, which I've just posted in the chat. That finishes today. And, of course, the Alan Shearer 260 dinner. I just interviewed Alan on the show today. You can find that on the playlist. And there are a chance to win 2 tickets for that special event on the 7th of April. It's a £5 a number, and there's 99 tickets available. We'll be drawing that on the Three Amigos on Friday. So to enter that and a chance to win a prize worth £520, go to nufcmatters.com and buy your ticket. It's a 1 in 99 chance of winning those pair of tickets. So get yourself involved. And just a quick pointer as well to something I did a little bit earlier today. I had my pal Robin Perry on. He's a journalist who is at this moment in time in Lviv in the Ukraine. He's been there 2 weeks covering the war in Ukraine, and fascinating insight into what it's like to be a journalist out there. And, he's doing a fantastic job. I know he's writing for a newspaper, which is not everybody's favourite, and for obvious reasons, and rightly so. However, he is a good friend of mine, and it was wonderful to see that he's safe and well, but also to hear, the kind of things that he is seeing out there in the Ukraine. He's doing a fantastic job. He's been on Good Morning Britain this week as well, helping them out as a news correspondent on there. So if you want to check that out, just check that out. It's in the playlist as well. Now, I do usually ask for an Ask George question, and unbelievably, nobody has come up with one yet. So, George, what I'm going to do is, we did actually have something teed up with you, which you sent me a few photographs, didn't you, George? So let's come back to you and go with those photographs. What have you sent us, George? Well,
there's 4 photographs. I'll go straight into the weekend's match, and what I want you to ask, what I want you to look at with these photographs is look at that first one you just put on. Can you put it on again? Look at the bloke in the white shirt. That's Jackie Stamps, Derby County's lethal centre forward. And where are his arms when he's going up to head that ball? His
Down by
elbows,
side.
that's right. His elbows aren't in the defender's face and they aren't in the goalkeeper's face. Push it up. There's another one that there should be 4 together. Even the Wyn Davis, there's a Wyn Davis head end. Where's his arm? His leading arm is down by his side. And another one, I think that's the very famous Tom Finney. Now, he's on his own, but still he's not used his arms to climb or do anything. He's that down by his side. And the last one, I think, is, that's stamped a bit closer to the goalkeeper, but still his leading arm is away from the goalkeeper. It's not into the goalkeeper's chin or nose or anything like that. And the point I'm trying to make is that idiot that refereed our match, I mean, I've got to have some sympathy with referees in some way, because this idea that you've got to lead with your arm to get leverage and balance is a one which has been nurtured by some of the top professionals, including Alan Shearer and others that you hear on the television. Or he needs his arm to get height and get balance. Well, that's exactly what the Chelsea guy was saying when he was interviewed. Oh, well, no, I need my arm up because I need this. And you don't, if you're trained properly. I mean, I come from a time when if you lifted your arm above your waist, it was going to be a foul. And when the 2 players get together and the penalty, Murphy and that guy ended up wrestling with each other. The guy, he did pull Murphy's shirt off his back nearly. And still, well, in my old-fashioned ways, that would have been what we call a shoulder charge, and the arms wouldn't have been up there, because as soon as somebody did that, that would be it. It would have been a penalty. And actually, I seen an excuse where one of the VAR people saying, well, the shirt pull wasn't enough to send the attacker down. The shirt pull's enough to give the penalty. The attacker doesn't need to go down. And the same with the elbow. The referee gave a yellow card. Well, if he goes and looks at the rules of football, he'll find that once he decides that's a foul, there's only one card he can give, and it's a red card. You know, the fact that he give a yellow card is completely against the rules of the game in all ways. And all he needs to do is to go and look at his rule book, and he'd find only card he can give is a red card, and he didn't do that. So I just wanted to. There was other examples I got, but I thought 4 was enough to show. And if I can explain further, is when I was a kid at Newcastle, we spent a lot of time in the old gym in the car park. I don't know if many of you lads can even remember the gym in the car park. And at least once or twice a week when we went to a training session, we have to go to the gym under the supervision of one of the coaches and do 3 things. We did an endurance test, which was running the length of the gym once, going back, 5-second wait, doing it again, 4-second wait, down to only got to no seconds, and you just did 2 or 3 together in the timed you to see how it improved. Then the next thing you did was what they call a standing jump. That's a long jump without a run. So you go down on your hunkers and try and jump as far forward as you can. And they measured it and kept a record. And then there was the sergeant jump. The sergeant jump is you go down on your hunkers and spring up to see how high you can touch. And they used to have a board with the chalk on, and you have to try and wipe the chalk off with your fingers to show how high you could get. Now, the standing jump champion was Ronnie Simpson, the goalkeeper, the cat. The sergeant jump champion was no other than Jackie Milburn. But everybody, whether a young kid like I was at the time, or whether you were a senior professional like Jackie Milburn, everybody used to have to go and do that. But the sergeant jump and the standing jump, the whole point of them was training you to jump with your arms down by your side. So
well, that's a great education, and a lot of people saying, "Well done, George." And this guy speaks a lot of sense. He does. You should watch the rest of the shows George has been on. He does. That's why we've got him on. He does speak a lot of sense. But I'm pleased to say that after a little bit of poking and prodding, we do actually have. Ask George. Now, we've got 2 questions. So I'm going to ask you these 2, George. The first one is from Gary Milliken. Question for George, and he likes to call you Google. Who was the oldest player ever to play in the top flight? Now, I'm sure Gary thinks this is a chance to catch you out.
Well, I think that's got to be Stanley Matthews, hasn't it? Although I think Billy Meredith might be a closer second, but I think if we're talking top flight, it's got to be Stanley Matthews. I mean, he played for England when he was 47, something like that. So, yes, he was playing league football well into his 50s. Yeah.
Stanley Matthews. The second question is Jonathan Ward. He says, question for George. What was the most depressing season that you can remember watching Newcastle that didn't include Mike Ashley's era that you had to suffer through, and why?
Well, it wasn't just depressing. It was so disappointing because our manager happened to be one of our own, Jackie Charlton. There was a season when Jackie Charlton was in charge when we seemed to buy anything and anybody just for the sake of doing it. And the more the came in, the more bizarre that they were. And we had some players who really should never have worn a black and white shirt. And it just went down and down until the inevitable happened. We got relegated. But I think that was, apart from the Ashley time, that was probably one of the most disappointing times I've seen.
Okay, there we go. Fantastic. Thank you for getting your questions in for George. We'll do the same again next week. Neil, coming to you, the VAR decision, or non-decision, shall we say, really spoiled the game last weekend. But Liam yesterday said something which I agreed with 100%. And I don't know whether it was because we were both there, but it seemed like a moment, is what Liam said yesterday. It seemed like a moment. We were on the stage at Stamford Bridge, having gone down there season after season in the Premier League and the First Division. We've been trounced down there. We've been outplayed down there. We've scraped a draw down there. We've got the odd fluky win down there, Mitch. But it seemed as if it was almost like the changing of the guard. It felt to me yesterday at the weekend, Mitch, as if we'd arrived on the big scene and there's better to come.
It's not that long ago we'd have gone there and got a pasting, particularly with the changed team that we had out, particularly with the changed team that had changes made the night before when Shelby was declared unfit the night before. So total new game plan, total new team. And yet we went there and we didn't just bloody their nose. We should have come away with 3 points. You know, we can talk about VAR, we can talk about the red card that should have been and should the eventual goal scorer have actually been on the pitch. We can talk about a referee who, I know people are pointing out 2 other games where he's made mistakes for us.
Yeah.
But I've been talking to some of the lads that support other teams out here, and I'm up to 8 games this season where he's made critical mistakes in games, and I just think he's a terrible referee. Simple as that. And he needs to be taken out of the Premier League panel. It's that simple. He's just shit. He's not biased against us. He's just terrible. And so, you know, we need to. Sometimes you've got to take those ones on the chin, unfortunately. But I know what you're saying. There was a definite sea change. There was a definite feeling of we're not just here to make up the numbers. We're not just here to roll over and give you 3 points. We're here. We've arrived. And that's on the back of that 9-game run. It's not an embarrassment to lose 1-0 at Chelsea at the back of a 9-game unbeaten run, is it really? And we can come away with a valid argument that should have been 3 points, and on another day it would have been. I've got no doubt about that. The non-decision on the penalty was just awful. Back to penalty all day long. I reckon 9 games out of 10 that's given as a penalty. That changes the flow of the game. I think in 9 games out of 10, Kai Havertz gets a red. He's not on the pitch to score the winner. They only had that first shot on target on something like 75 minutes. There's not many teams done that to Chelsea this season. You know, not in okay, you can take that current situation into account, but they were at home. They've not had to get on a nasty coach anywhere or suffer terribly about doing anything, going to somewhere on a bus instead of a plane. No. I get exactly what you're saying. There's a definite feeling that there's a changing of the guard happening. And let's have more of it. Let's see what comes tomorrow, because I think there'll be a few people with fires in their bellies tomorrow wanting to go out and say, hey, we were hard done by in that last game. Let's have it.
Great stuff. Steve, you know, VAR, it needs to be looked at, doesn't it? It was a horrendous decision that at the weekend on non-decision where the shirt pull should have been a penalty.
Yeah.
And then the elbow.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. But this is old Mother Riley at the PGMOL. He runs the show. He decides what's a penalty and what's not a penalty. We've had this conversation God knows how many times. I think it's 5 or 6 years ago I was down at a pre-season event that had groups of fans and fans liaison officers from each club in the Premier League that particular season. And we got a presentation by Riley. And in that presentation, he wanted to talk about the new offside rules and what was and what wasn't going to be offside in the forthcoming season. And every example he used was a Newcastle game on his little video snippets. Every single one he used was a Newcastle. And he asked everybody as he was showing them, would you have given a penalty for this? Was that offside? Was that offside? Would you have given a goal? Was that offside? Etc. It just went on and on. And on every occasion, when the decision that he wanted came, and he was using those examples, saying this is why it wasn't given as offside against Newcastle. Did you all agree? There was only 3 people in the room out of the 25 or 26 people in that room that said, no, we didn't agree. And it was the 3 Newcastle fans that were in the room at the time. Everybody else. Then, when he turned tables, and he agreed, by the way, he was going against her. Then he used another example where there was a goal disallowed for offside against Newcastle. It was one of our goals. We got it disallowed. And he asked them again, he goes, do you think the referee got it right that player was given offside? And they all said, oh, yeah. And we all said, no, he wasn't offside. And it was Stephen Taylor's heel. He was standing facing the wrong direction, and his heel was behind the defender, and he wanted to give that as an offside. He wasn't even facing the goal, and he wasn't interfering with play, and they all agreed. That's the sort of pedantic bloke that Riley is, and Riley runs the PGMOL like that continuously. So it's obvious that I hear what Mitch is saying about the referee, and yes, he is a poor referee, but he's getting no support whatsoever. No support from anybody who was either sitting there as the video referee or the video referee's assistant, whichever one of them wasn't at the bar getting the drinks in at the time and watching the TV at that particular moment, didn't even have the guts, because of the way that the whole system runs, to step in and going, I think you need to look at that. Let's face it, it wasn't a corner for a start, so you could have overruled the referee's decision on giving a corner. So the defender never touched the ball. It came off our player, came off Murphy. He was dragged, his shirt was being pulled, and his knee was clattered by the thigh of Chalabar anyway, so he was going down. And anyone could see it, and even all the pundits afterwards said it. But this is what we're up against. And in terms of the way Newcastle played, that was the champions of Europe, the champions of the world, a bloke who we're told is one of the finest managers out there, and tactically he was done by Eddie Howe on Sunday. Tactically he was done. The midfield worked their socks off, the defence, and I heard people complaining just yesterday on TV saying that Newcastle had parked the bus. We didn't park the bus. We played 3 central defenders. We played 2 wing backs who were constantly pushing on and supporting the midfield. We got into every tackle. Mason Mount was never in the game. The Kante got a run around at times. He's a smashing player, great player, had a good game, but he had Bruno at his heels continuously. The wide men did well. The only player really who had a poor game, if we can say it, but he wasn't on the pitch very long in terms of influencing the game, was ASM. And that was because by then things were changing, and they had made their changes to try and be effective. And we didn't really provide them with much of the ball. And I think that was just the way the game was. To me, it was the wrong substitution. And if I'm going to criticise Eddie Howe, I would have brought Fraser on just to give us that little bit of more in terms of the support. But apart from that, that's the only criticism I could give. And I thought that the team played excellently. And my man, Mr. Longstaff in midfield, had an absolute blinder, and he was
He
mad.
did indeed, yeah.
I think to add to what you said, Steve, I think it's clear to me, and it's clear to many, the problem's not VAR per se. It's the application and non-application of it. And that's the problem we have. And that's, again, PGMOL.
Yeah. Okay. Steve Wilkinson, we just seem to be surrounded in controversy, but that 9-game unbeaten run has given us a bit of breathing space. So we can let it laugh at it, I guess, but we don't have to let it get it was too much. But we really need to do something in the summer, Steve, don't we? Something needs to be done at the higher levels about this, because there's just no consistency.
No, I think I was never a fan of VAR from the start, and for the very reason that that's happening is that it was the type of game it is, football. It's ongoing, and it's not a stop-start game. You know, you had the cricket and tennis where the television cameras came in, even rugby where yes, it's an active game, but there's a stop and you've got time to review it. Football's continuous, and having an extra official who's looking at a screen and you don't know how far back they're looking to see something, and I mean, you might have been watching other games. There's about half a dozen other games going on. I don't know whether they all sit together and there's screens on. So there's an incident of that, and they're really concentrating on Newcastle game. But it simply goes back to the laws of the game. Are you allowed to grab somebody by the shirt? I think it's in the rules that you're not. So there's the foul. And if that's not clear and obvious, then what is clear and obvious? It's clear and obvious isn't spending 10 minutes working out whether your toenail was offside or your elbow sticking out too far. That's not clear and obvious. They were the ones that, in the past, we would be happily let the referee make a mistake when it was analysed on Match of the Day or whatever, to say, well, oh yes, it was close, but I can understand why the referee didn't give it. That one was blatant. You're not allowed to grab the shirt, so therefore it's a foul. And how you can understand if the referee was unsighted and he didn't see it, but what is the VAR guy doing? Everybody on all the Sky people on it, the Match of the Day, every other pundit that's looked at it has said, yeah, grab the shirt, should have been a penalty. Why is the VAR not seeing that? And the hideaway, you know, you used to have when a dodgy decision was made on the pitch, you had the likes of Wayne Rooney going up and all the rest of Man United. That was when the stop. It was them going hounding the referee for a dodgy decision. That sort of, I think they made a rule that the captains were allowed to go and complain to the referee, but because they used likes of Wayne Rooney and he started it, and all the rest of them seemed to do it. It's just go and hound the referee when there was a dodgy decision. That is likely to influence what was going on later in the game, maybe. But now you can't even see this guy that's making these daft decisions. So VAR for me, I would rather. You know, I was vociferous against it before it started. And I would have rather have gone to the sort of way that they have it in American football, where you have more officials at various parts of the pitch supporting the referee. And often you do see things that are on the blind side, or you're seeing from different angles. Goal line technology, when they first started having a sort of extra linesman on the back line for ball crossing the line, that's been superseded by the technology. But I think that was a step in the right direction. At least the linesman then was always on the line, whereas for a normal linesman to see it, his angles were a bit off. But that was sort of abused, that he was there and the odd mistake was made, yes. But to me, that having an extra pair of eyes on the pitch that you could, he puts his flag in the air or radios to the referee and saying, let's have a chin wag about this. I would rather see that sort of thing going on. And then at least you're hearing the decisions. You're seeing why they've had a conflict about it. But this sort of keep it a secret society and say, you don't know what the referee's saying to the VAR guy and vice versa, that, we're on party to. And I don't know whether I want it put out through the tannoy. You wouldn't hear it at St James's Park anyway. I've never heard the tannoy for about 30 years. So I'm not sure I want to necessarily hear it, but I would like to have more accountability of what's going on. And I don't know whether the Football Supporters Association or something like that could put more pressure on to get changes made. Whether that's the angle on it, but it cannot go on the way it is.
No. Al-Walid, Michael Tiplady says, we need to hear what VAR and the ref are saying. That is what Steve has said as well. Would it make it easier for supporters, at home, I guess, watching it on TV? And obviously, when we when you go to the game, like Steve says, it will be difficult to hear anything over the tannoy. But at least when we get home and we analyse the game, we would know what on earth the decision was made on it. Does it need to be improved, our lead VAR?
And I think it's applicable in Australia, if I'm not mistaken. They do that. And regarding same what Dr. Neil says, it's the problem is it applicable or they applicate the VAR or not when they applicate it? Because the situation now is like easy to make a game fixed. It's easy to just ignore, because I'm sure if he went the VAR for Chaluba interfere, he definitely will give a penalty kick. But the thing, for dangerous interfere, for handball, for offside, they go to the VAR. But I don't know. I noticed many penalties were stealing from us, especially from Newcastle this season. And is it a problem with the penalties? Is it just enough to for the referee to take the decision? No need to go by VAR. But I noticed they go to the VAR. It's up to them. They should go or just ignore it, because they know if they go, they have to make a clear decision. But this is what I want to know: why he didn't want to VAR. Also, maybe I'm not thrilled with the captain. I'm not really sure who was the captain, but the captain should make rule to object, because I can't say only Murphy object on the penalty. It should be more action by the players, I believe.
Okay, good stuff. Always, go on.
Sorry,
George.
Steve. Just to come back, somebody wrote a bit about saying it's not this, not that, like that in boxing, etc. I have to say that if there was a fight recently I watched, I don't know if you did, Steve, which was
Josh Taylor.
A stinking decision. I mean, you can't call it any other. Now, at least they've scrutinised the scorecards. Now, one of the judges has been scrapped from judging World Championship fights for a very long period. I don't know how long it is. It may be indefinitely, actually. But they've just said, you can't do World Championship fights again. It hasn't overturned the decision. But at least the guy who was on the losing end, at least he's got the satisfaction on that they did look and they did do something. And the same thing in horse racing. If there's a stinking race, the first thing to do is to look to see if the jockey was actually trying and all that sort of thing. And if it's bad enough, they even bring the police. What happens to these idiots that don't get these VAR decisions right? Absolutely nothing. And it's time there was a system. I mean, I don't know what it's like now because I'm not that involved. But there used to be an assessor, a referee's assessor, in every game. Now, I don't know when that stopped or if it still goes on. And that assessor used to put a report in. Now, I can even remember, certainly in the 60s, a couple of referees been stopped from doing 2 or 3 matches till they, like a punishment for not getting things right. I haven't heard of anything like that in recent years, and certainly not since VAR come on. So I think it's time. In the other sports, if there were decisions as bad as those for us on Sunday, I don't think the questions would just be asked by people in the sport or the supporters. I think that the legal eagles would have a look at it as well.
Yeah. Okay, last 5 minutes of the show. We're going to go for a quick prediction. Our lead, I'll come to you first, mate. Newcastle, of course, playing Everton away tomorrow. Only a few weeks since we played them and beat them, dispatched them, of course, 3-1 at St James's Park. Kick-off 7:45 live on Amazon Prime. All 3,000 away tickets have been sold. I'm popping down there as well, so looking forward to that. Everton looking in a precarious position at the minute, so they will be up for this, make no doubt about it. But let's look at the team news. Callum Wilson, Kieran Trippier still out. Joe Willock is in line to return. Still doubts over Joe Linton and John Joe Shelby due to their problems. As for Everton, well, Yerry Mina, Tom Davies and Fabian Delph are all unavailable. John Joe Kenny suspended, and there's going to be a late decision on Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Salman Rondon is also down at Everton. As we know, Rafa Benitez, of course, took him down there, and he could potentially start against Newcastle. Craig Pawson is referee in the game. This is his third game in charge of a Newcastle fixture. A 1-1 home draw with Man United and the 1-0 win over Aston Villa are his other two. And VAR, which is continually switched off against Newcastle, it seems, is Stuart Atwell. So, Albally, prediction for tomorrow night's game, please.
Yes, Newcastle 2-1 because I really wish we were still, we've been robbed last game, and we were talking about 4 games. I said we're gonna have 10 points. So if we get to Chelsea, at least we are almost there. So hopefully Newcastle will make up, and hopefully a good referee.
Okay, Steve Wilkinson, prediction.
Yeah, I think we'll win tomorrow. I think the performance on Sunday was no different than the others in terms of the graft and the commitment, and it was a brilliant goal. We've got to say that the goal they scored, Havertz, so whether maybe he should have been on the pitch or not, but it was a fantastic control and finish. So I think we'll stay tight again. And I think we can win 2-0.
Okay, Steve Hasty.
Important day tomorrow. It's St. Patrick's Day, so I'll not be travelling down, Steve, but we will be showing our respect to the men of the Tyneside Irish regiments and the Northumberland Fusiliers and Scottish Fusiliers at a reclaim service tomorrow for those who lost their lives at the Battle of Somme. And as for the game, which obviously comes secondary to anything that I've just said, I think we'll play a 4-3-3. I think that Fraser will be back in. I think you'll tighten up at the back with the 4, and I think we'll go for a 2-0 win. I think the lads at the back are wanting a clean sheet. They've played some fantastic football this last 9 games, and I think that they'll have the bull by the horns. They'll want to prove that there's something about them, then they can come back and they can put that little bit of disappointment they had with that goal in the last few minutes behind them. So that's what I'm predicting, Steve. 2-0 win for Newcastle.
Mitch, are we going with the lucky dice tonight?
No, it's in the bag. So
we've caught you out on that one. So we'll just go for a simple prediction from you today.
Yep, easy. Everton. I've been speaking to some of the Blues out here, and I've come to the conclusion that they're all shitting their pants. The season revolves on tomorrow for them. They remind me of us the first time we got relegated under Ashley. On paper, you think, yeah, should be all right. But in practice, there's no heart there. If we get an early goal, they won't come back from it. It's as simple as that. I think if we go 1-0 up in the first 15 minutes, we'll take the stuffing out of them. And I'm going to have 2-0 as well.
Okay, last but by no means least, George.
Well, I think I'm with the 2-0 crew. I'm afraid that's where I see it going. Everton are they got rid of Rafa, and I think they're now seeing the folly of what they did. He was starting to shape the club up and get things done in the way he wanted, in which was for the benefit of Everton. And they've shattered all of that, and they're paying the dividends. And the dividend they're paying is a sour one, I'm afraid. So it doesn't look very good. But I'm happy with 2-0, I think, to us.
I've got 2-0 as well. So that's, a very positive panel tonight. I'm back tomorrow morning with Supermac and Gibbo at the earlier time of 10 o'clock, because obviously I'm going down to Everton. But before we finish, I do like to dig out a photograph of somebody from these parts in their younger days and to see whether the panel can guess who it is. So here we go.
Eddie Howe.
It's not Eddie Howe.
Sure.
Join in on the chat as well, guys, if anybody wants a little guess as to who that is.
Is it football related, Steve?
It's not football related. No.
Right.
Right.
Mark Byers, well done in the chat. Don't cheat, lads. Don't cheat. Mark Byers has got it. Andy Davies has got it. It is Tony Blair.
Oh, Tony Blair. Wow.
Former Prime Minister.
Of course
Tony
it
Blair.
is. Of course it is.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Always do that for a bit of fun. Well done, Mark Byers. You were first in, so you're the winner. Lads, as always, absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thanks for coming on a bit earlier so I can get out. And don't forget, folks, I am back with our current affairs show at 8 o'clock, News of the World. And Andrew Jane, Patricia Devlin, Lee Pablo Davies, and Cookie are joining us tonight, 8 till 9, to discuss a whole host of topics. So take care. See you soon. Bye, guys.
Thanks again, lads.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.